Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our panel on shipping in a changing world. My name is Despina Theodosiou. I am the co-CEO of Tototheo Maritime, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. As we navigate the waters of global trade and transport, we find ourselves at a critical juncture where the imperative for resilience and sustainability has never been more pronounced. The shipping industry stands as a critical component of our interconnected world, facilitating the movement of goods and fostering economic growth on a global scale. However, with this indispensable role comes a responsibility to confront environmental challenges and chart a course towards a more sustainable future. Today, we're privileged to have a panel of experts who will share their insights and their expertise, and together we will explore how embracing changes in fuel efficiencies, harnessing technological advancements, and fostering collaboration can propel us towards a future where maritime not only thrives, but also harmonizes with the ambitious goals for the health of our planet. But things first, before we delve into our discussion, I'd like to give each panelist the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad to be back in Delphi Forum. Actually, I'm in Delphi Forum since the beginning, but under other capacity. So under my new capacity, it's a great pleasure to be here as a private, commenting about politics and policies instead of otherwise. Well, there's definitely a great discussion about where shipping goes, but I think that we have to see not only the sustainability regarding the planet, which is definitely addressed by technology, but also we have to see the resilience of the Western world towards the emerging markets and how we are going to keep up with our predominant position. And I would like to underline that thank God there is so much competition in the shipping industry, due also and to the great exposure of the Greek shipping, that we don't face a great lack of, let's say, a great lack of potential different options in transporting goods and energy resources throughout the world. And the fact that still we have very competitive market relies on the success of European shipping altogether, because the Greeks predominate in the tankers, in bulk carriers, and other European nations predominate in the containers. And this is very important, and we shouldn't lose that. We shouldn't lose that for the sake of our consumers, of our citizens. I'm talking as a European, and for the sake of the global competition. It would be very difficult to cope with the Chinese-controlled shipping market. We have a Chinese-controlled shipbuilding market, but it will be very difficult to cope also with the Chinese-controlled shipping market altogether for the cost of our energy resources and all goods. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go to Mette Asmussen. Mette is leading the maritime sector initiatives at the World Economic Forum. Mette, how can the maritime sector adjust to shifting global trade patterns and demands while simultaneously promoting sustainability?
Thank you, and first of all, also a pleasure to be here. It's my first time in Delphi, and it's an honor to be here and speak about my favorite topic of shipping. Obviously, I usually introduce myself a little bit as a maritime nerd that get to work with an industry that I love, and especially working with how do we transition this industry that is so fundamental for global trade. So I just want to start out by saying two things that we work with at the World Economic Forum. So within the last years, we've really worked around two key topics of how do we keep that momentum around decarbonizing shipping, and how do we move it towards net zero, while recognizing the role that shipping play for global trade and for really being the backbone of global trade. And then the second thing is really industry action, and how do we actually move into specific investments and actions that can actually facilitate that transition. So we run an initiative at the forum called First Movers Coalition. It's an initiative that goes across 7 different sectors with 100 companies. And these companies, 17 of them in the shipping industry, has really committed to using their procurement power and the power of demand signal to advance some of the technologies that are needed for this transition. So that's a great step towards sustainability in terms of actually getting there and not only talking about it. I usually also say that first movers is one thing. The transition is not really going to happen if we don't have the fast followers as well. I think we all around this table know that the shipping industry is really facing a tremendous challenge, and it's not something that the shipping industry is going to solve on their own. It's really a transition that requires collaboration across other industries as well. And then just quickly coming to your question on how can maritime really adjust to global trade and demand shifting. I think one key point for me here is that, as I said before, shipping is the backbone of global trade. We've seen it before. The shipping industry will essentially be powering global trade. And when I say that, I also look into, as other industries are looking to decarbonize, who will be moving that fuel around? That will only be moved around if the shipping industry is able to really take up that challenge as well. So I think shipping decarbonization is not only fundamental for the industry itself, but actually also fundamental for decarbonizing other sectors. And then just quick, how does shipping look in the future? Shipping has always adjusted to how global trade has developed. So it's an extremely resilient industry that's kind of managed over many different changes through hundreds, thousands of years to adjust to how global trade is developing, and it will continue to do that.
Thank you so much, Mette. And you know, with any adjustment or any transformation, of course, comes cost. And here comes my next question to Sotiris Raptis, the Secretary General at the European Community Shipowners Association. Sotiris, how can the shipping industry balance the costs of investing in sustainability with the need to remain competitive in the market?
Thank you, Despina. My organization represents the European shipowners in Brussels. The companies of our members control 40% of the global fleet. And this is important, it's an important figure to have in mind. Now? So I need to repeat then that we control 40%. The companies of our member organizations control 40% of the global fleet. And this is an important figure to have in mind, because shipping is a cornerstone of the European security. Energy security, food security, supply chain security. It's also the backbone of global trade. And another interesting figure here is how much we rely as Europeans on trade. If you compare the numbers, for instance, China, the ratio of the Chinese GDP to trade is it's between 30 and 40%. For the US, it's only 20%. For Europe, it's around 90% of our GDP. So we need to strike the right balance between economic security and open trade. Talking about the costs, we're facing enormous challenges. We have a clear roadmap. We know where we need to go. We want to become net zero by 2050. And by the way, shipping, international shipping, is the only sector of the global economy with a level of climate ambition that matches the European climate ambition, net zero. How to get there? The enormous between fuels currently used and clean fuels, the cost, the price gap is enormous. Even if we talk about advanced biofuels, it can go up to 5 times more expensive than fuels currently used. So we need to make sure that we have a sector that stays competitive at the international level. But if shipping is not competitive, if European shipping is not competitive, we'll not have also a thriving European maritime industry. innovative technologies, fuel production. And this is the debate these days in Brussels, how to enhance industrial capacity. And this is where we are on the same page with the fuel suppliers, but we need also robust requirements for the fuel suppliers. Shipping is the only sector of the European industry for which there are no requirements for the fuel suppliers in Europe to make clean fuels available in the market at an affordable price. We also need enormous investments. The Draghi report will soon come out on the competitiveness of the European economy. We're missing more than 5 billion euros per year for the energy transition. 1/3 of it is public investments. We need this money to scale up, to have cleaner fuels available in the market.
Thank you, Sotiris. And I will turn to Philippe Louis-Dreyfus, chairman at Louis-Dreyfus Armateurs and president of the Maritime Committee of the French Hellenic Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Philippe, could you outline potential solutions to achieve these decarbonization goals? I would like you to look at technological advancements, industry collaboration. How do you envision balancing the urgency of decarbonization on the one hand with the practical considerations of implementation costs and timelines? Thank you.
I have 2 hours, that's it? Okay. It's difficult to
2 minutes rather, sorry.
But it's easier because some of the issues I would like to address have been addressed by previous speakers. I mean, you're talking of questioning on environment issues. It has been one of my battles for many years. I've been for a lot of people in the shipping community and the shipowners some kind of pain in the ass for years, and that's not Sotiris who's going to say the contrary. It's been a big battle. I would have wanted our profession to be a little more proactive. That was 10 or 15 years ago. Now we are in a position where we have to be, not only shipowners, but all the community, we have to be reactive, and we have to react to norms which we did not decide ourselves. It would have been better if we had done the job ourselves 10 or 15 years ago. Nevertheless, we have now very tough rules. We have to deal with them for some time. It's going to be a very long time before we get adequate fuels, adequate engines, adequate ships, adequate finance, as two my colleagues here mentioned already this morning. It's maybe one of the main issues we have facing us. Money, but it's not the only one. It's also a question of the way we are seen, and I'll come back to that later. So you're asking me what I would see. There's one thing I've been seeing for years, and I have not been very popular saying that, and not very supported. There's one easy, immediately efficient, inexpensive way of reducing aggression to environment, which is reducing the speed of ships. I've been promoting that and yelling in the desert of neutrality, not to say opposition. Nevertheless, it's difficult to convince some people in our community. We've been little like, for a long time, like monkeys, you know. We didn't want to hear, we didn't want to see, we didn't want to listen. Now we're facing very tough regulations, and we have to deal with that. And the only way of having an immediate, efficient way, like for your car, if you want to save on fuel, you don't run as fast on the motorway. So for ships, it would be it's an easy thing to do, immediately effective and uncostly. I think that's enough on the subject, but I've been saying that for years. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and happy to be in this forum again.
Thank you. I will, although you have been saying it for years, and I must admit we've heard it from a few of the Greek shipowners as well, so it's something that's been discussed. I will turn to Liana Gouta. She's the Director General at FuelsEurope. So Liana, what role can the fuel sector play in reducing the carbon footprint of shipping?
Thank you very much, Despina. Thank you for this invitation. It's my honor and pleasure to participate in this panel. Well, I represent FuelsEurope, the European Fuel Manufacturers Association, producing both conventional and renewable fuels and covering 97% of the energy needs to move people and goods in Europe. So we definitely believe that renewable fuels have a crucial role to play in decarbonizing transport, and especially hard-to-abate sectors such as shipping, due to their very high energy density, also the ease and safety of transport and storage, and of course the fact that they can be used with existing vessels and existing storage and delivery infrastructure, which means no additional vessel or infrastructure cost. The thing is that in order to produce these fuels, our sector has to address two main challenges. First, to remain the reliable supplier of all these fuels that Europe needs during the transitional period. And this is what we have been doing through the years by ensuring the security of supply for Europe. And we have been doing this not only in periods of peace, but also through the worst crisis of energy and geopolitical crisis, as well as the pandemic. And the second thing, together with this, we have to proceed with major transformation and multi-billion investments, as Sotiris said, in order to produce the renewable fuels that Europe will need. The good news is that this transformation has already started, and our member companies are fully engaged and are heavily investing in renewable fuels by gradually transitioning from the fossil feedstock to sustainable feedstock, such as sustainable biomass, used cooking oil, animal fats, residual residues from agriculture and forestry, municipal waste, and for e-fuels, green hydrogen, recycled CO2, and also green electricity. And as for our assets, there are conventional refineries that have been converted to biorefineries alongside new dedicated plants to produce advanced biofuels or e-fuels, which means all these plants produce 100% of renewable fuels. And as for the rest of the refineries, conventional refineries, they are already co-processing conventional and sustainable feedstock in order to reduce their CO2 footprint of their fuels and products. So coming to your question, yes, renewable fuels will have a crucial role to play in decarbonizing shipping. The only question is whether these technologies will be developed and these fuels will be produced in Europe and not be imported by other areas of the world. This is a big challenge for Europe and for our sector, of course, as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Liana. And we're also very happy to have Kiki Mitroussi with us today. She's heading the Foreign Affairs Department at the Union of Greek Shipowners. Kiki, my question to you is, you know, the pursuit of resilience has become imperative at all levels, especially since the pandemic and of course with all the geopolitical tensions. With a view to maintaining resilient supply chains, what do you think is the role of shipping for the achievement of the EU's goals?
Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me be here among these very distinguished speakers and participants. Resilience, I think this is going to be, it's already a key word, and it's going to be an even more important for the EU in the futures to come. For shipping, what is shipping for the EU? I'd use, I think, 3 words: indispensable, irreplaceable, and affordable. And I'll just give you brief numbers. Indispensable. 74% of the extra EU trade is carried by ships. This percentage is raised to almost 95% for critical agricultural products, barley and wheat. 90% of oil and gas imports into the EU are also carried by sea. If we come now to the areas where these all are sourced, there is no other mode of transport that can transport these vast quantities from all the distant areas around the world. I think we all know the old saying from Erling Ness, the god must have been a ship owner because he placed raw materials far away from where they are needed and covered the earth with 2/3 of water. So I think that gives a picture of what shipping is for the world in general, but for the EU in particular. And especially in light of the geopolitical tensions that we are all experiencing. The EU shipping is not just a necessity because of its characteristics. I think it is a transport choice, because this is the way that the EU will be able to fulfill its objectives, both in terms of economic security, energy security, resilience, and sustainability. And one more thing about affordability is shipping is the transport mode which can carry at a very low transport cost the cargoes around the world. It has managed to keep the transport costs low because of economies of scale, building ever bigger ships, and also implementation of efficiency measures, energy efficiency measures. Now, whether this will continue to be the case, it's a discussion that we will keep on holding. Sotiris already mentioned the price differential and others between conventional fossil fuels and alternative fuels. It is true that there are estimations that new fuels are 6 to 12 times more expensive than fossil fuels, depending on the type. But certainly, EU shipping will continue to be for the EU not just a transport mode, but a strategic asset and an EU export industry. Because as Sotiris said, in the EU, we have 40% of the controlled fleet around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Miltiadis, you touched upon the importance of the European shipbuilding sector in your introduction. However, can you expand a little bit on the opportunities that this sector presents, but also what are the challenges in view of the shipping industry's decarbonization goals?
Well, first, let me say that after I quitted politics, I decided to follow the George Prokopiou's vision for the rebirth of one of the greatest shipyards in Greece and all over the Mediterranean. So I really work on that, on how to revive the shipbuilding industry, not only in Greece, but in Europe in total. Let me say a few numbers about that, because it's very important to understand where we stand. While Chinese put in their order book only 1% of their orders outside China, the Europeans place 95% of their order book outside Europe, to understand where we stand. The number for Koreans is 9% out of Korea, and for Japanese, 30% out of Japan. So we have a long way to march. Let me say that also that we have more than 150 shipyards, big shipyards in Europe, and almost 150,000 workers. So there is enough potential to grow. And in Europe, we don't produce any more crude carriers or bulk carriers. These are going abroad. But we build ferries and cruise ships by large numbers, almost by 100%. In the case of cruise ships, it's 95%. So we have to maintain the technology that, and the capabilities that we have acquired. When we see the world, we can see that the Western world actually lacks the capacity of also naval infrastructure. In the case of the United States, for every 1,000 ships that China is building, the United States is building only 10. So the chaotic distance between the two production lines is apparent, and it's also very important to understand that the replacement rate of the naval capabilities of the United States are in a very dramatic position, because the Chinese may replace the 40% of their fleet within 5 to 8 years, while for the US that needs almost a quarter of a century. There comes Greece, and with the revival of the shipbuilding sector, with the close alliance that we have with the United States, and with the help of the shipping community that is eager and ready to grow the ship repair at the beginning, and I hope in the future the shipbuilding order book in Greece, I think that Greece may become again one important player in this cornerstone of the world through the passage of Suez Canal and also building up the capabilities. For us in Skaramangas, we try to invest in repairing the infrastructure and acquire new repair capabilities focused on the LNG, on the cruise sector, on mega yachts, and also on the naval part of our shipyard.
Thank you so much. I will go to a second round of questions now, and we'll concentrate a little bit more on policy regulation and the image of shipping. And I will turn to Philippe. You have talked a lot about the image of shipping. Do you believe that it's declining? Which factors do you believe contribute to this shift, if it does exist? And what are some actionable steps or initiatives that the industry could undertake to restore public trust and enhance its reputation?
Yes, sometimes I appear to be always criticizing shipping, but I want it to be clear, I'm very much in favor of shipping. I've been always supporting their activity as president of EXA, BIMCO, and my own company, who's been in 175 years in business. But on the other hand, that allows me to be sometimes a little critic. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the image of shipping was particularly good. It was the solution for, as it was mentioned, we were getting 95% and we're still of world goods transported. It was the only way to do it, and it still is, by the way. Nevertheless, that image of being the solution for economic issues, it has changed. Today, it seems more and more in the ideas of public, and if we say the public, that means people in politics, maybe not in Greece, where everybody normally is in favor of shipping and knows how important it is for the economy, for the employment, and for that, but all over the world and in Europe, the image has changed, and I think that is something rather worrying. Why has it changed? I see 3 or 4 reasons for that. One, in the environment, I just addressed the subject a few minutes ago. We could have done better, quicker, and today we are being aggressed by norms which are going to be very difficult to live with. It will take some time. So environmentally, we were a solution. Today, we seem to be a problem, and you know, we're the only when children draw a ship, it's the only transport way where they put smoke coming out of the infrastructure. So environment, I mentioned that, is one of the reasons of our image declining. But there are 2 or 3 others. One is the fact that some of us, most of us, not all, but a lot, and especially some, have made a lot of money recently. A lot of money after years where situation was very different. Nevertheless, in my country, in France and other European countries, it has not been very well understood or lived through. So we have been, and some people in distribution of goods have said we have to increase the goods because the cost of shipping and the freight rates have been quite high, which is obviously totally untrue, because the cost of freight in the cost of a telephone or a kilogram of oranges is very little. Nevertheless, we were seen as responsible of inflation. Sometimes, more and more, we are seen as in Europe, as for some countries, some flags, as social dumpers. And we are not always behaving perfectly well with our sailors. In some countries, under certain flags, are ill-treated. And more the public is reacting on that. And which is, again, a rather unjust approach, because most of the European shipping companies and flags are perfectly responsible. And another thing, I have to mention that in the last...
But please, we need to conclude.
In the last, is the fact, I'll make it short, but it's we have been definitely, some companies have been profiting of some wars of the geopolitical situation to make money at a time and not exactly following the European rules, and that is something which is not accepted by everyone in Europe. So the image is the risk, and the risk for us, for shipping, and especially in Europe, is that people get fed up with what we're getting, and fed up with our rules and regulation, and mainly fed up with tonnage tax. And that would be a very dangerous situation for European shipping. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. I will move very quickly to Gigi. Greek shipping represents almost 21% of the world's capacity in terms of deadweight and 60% of the EU-controlled fleet. How does it fit in this quest for sustainability and resilience?
Well, I think just the sheer volume of the cargo carrying capacity that Greek ship owners have is depictive of their strategic role. Greek shipping is international and cross-trading. That means that it trades cargoes between countries and not necessarily only from Greece, of course, which is a very small country. So they are very, very important for the whole world and, of course, for the EU. They have presence in all types of ships, but primarily are engaged in the bulk shipping sector, which carries staples, essential goods which relate to food and energy, which are very vital for the survival and the well-being of all citizens around the world. They are itinerant in nature, which means that they are very flexible. They can respond very quickly to trading patterns and trading routes. They work in an almost perfectly competitive market. They are price takers. They are thousands of small, medium-sized companies, both in the EU and across the world, which means if a company falls for some reason, the trade still is there. It doesn't fall. So for all of these reasons, it is very, very important. Now, coming to sustainability, shipping is the most energy efficient mode of transport, is 4 times more efficient than road transport and 116 times more efficient than airlines. And of course, it continues to improve its carbon footprint. Over the last 20 decades, the shipping activity has doubled, but the air emissions, CO2 emissions, have actually fallen. Greek shipping is leading the way in this sense. It keeps on investing in new, larger and more efficient vessels. The Greek order book today is 4 times greater than what it was in 2021. And Greek ship owners have the largest alternative fuel capable and ready to use fleet. I think I was short enough.
Thank you, Kiki. And I will move very quickly to Liana. Are the regulations in place suitable to enable the build-up of production at scale of renewable and low-carbon fuels for shipping? What are your key messages? We've touched upon a little bit, but it's important to hear them.
Yes, it's a crucial question, this one. And of course, we have to acknowledge that the regulatory support of sustainable fuels according to the FuelEU Maritime. But we believe that there is still room and need for improvements because for the scale-up of renewable fuels and their use, we believe that the EU needs to create business cases and lead markets for these fuels, which currently are not, I'm afraid, are not in place. And I will focus on 2 key aspects that I believe are critical. First of all, we believe that we need an integrated approach for the ramp-up of these fuels and their use in all transport sectors, because we believe that this would create synergies and not competition between the use of these fuels in various transport sectors. Because we all know and we all understand that the bigger the market size, the bigger the investors' interest and the stronger the business case. And EU legislation, unfortunately, goes in the opposite direction, separating and dividing transport modes and picking out specific technologies for each sector. And the second important thing is that we miss a dedicated European strategy for the transition of liquid fuels and products. And we all know that the EU has launched important strategies for essential new technologies of the Green Deal, such as for hydrogen, batteries, and critical raw materials. But there is no strategy in place for renewable fuels. And we believe that in the next institutional term, we really need such a strategy, or I would say we believe that this is a missing piece in the European climate neutrality puzzle, because this strategy could set the could identify, first of all, and then set the regulatory and investment conditions to unlock investments that we will need, and therefore also to reduce the cost of these new fuels. And last but not least, in this context, we believe that cooperation and synergies will be crucial as well, and therefore we are really glad to participate in this panel, and we will be glad to cooperate with the shipping industry in order to address common challenges, to create new opportunities, and of course to support the European ambition, the European climate ambition.
Thank you, Liana. This goes to Sotiris and to Mette as well. I'll start with Sotiris. Is there anything that other industries are doing regarding sustainability that you would like to see the maritime sector adopt or learn from?
I think it's clear from the discussion today and from the public debate that the energy transition is the new battlefield of international competition. As Europeans, either we win or we're losing out. We need to invest, we need to accelerate the energy transition. We've got the targets, the right targets in place, but now we need to figure out how to get there. And for us, it's important that we engage in coalition building with our stakeholders, with the fuel suppliers, with the yards, the equipment manufacturers. But we need also to make it clear that as Europeans, we need to stay competitive. And this applies also to the European shipping industry. And if we want to draw some lessons from what happened in other industries, look at the car makers. What's happening these days with the production on electric vehicles, or with the solar power manufacturers. So we need to make sure that our industries stay competitive, and shipping is a cornerstone not only of our competitiveness but of our security. Kiki mentioned that we import 90% of our energy. Shipping also enabled Europe, enabled the world to stabilize food prices by exporting Ukrainian grain. But it's also important to say that shipping contributed to the energy security of the continent during the war in Ukraine. Countries like Germany managed to bring down imports of Russian gas by using LNG ships, by using also ships as LNG terminals, because they didn't have the infrastructure in place. So one important message is that we need to draw lessons about how the energy transition is organized in other sectors. One important message is that we need to invest massively. We need to put the money on the table. We need to create industrial capacity in Europe, but we also need to stay competitive at the international level. And this especially applies to shipping, because without European shipping, there will be no demand also in the industrial market in Europe, be it equipment manufacturing or fuel supply.
Thank you, Sotiris. Mette, same question to you. From your position, you see various industries. How do you see it?
Thank you, and I'll keep it super short. Collaboration is key. So instead of maybe looking at what can we learn from other sectors, because there's tons of things to learn from other sectors, I also want to look at how can we actually, how can we work together with other sectors? And one reason why I mentioned that is multi-sectoral offtake. So one of the things that we looked at last year is that nexus between supply and demand. 95% of maritime fuel projects don't make it past final investment decision. That's a big problem because supply is not going to be available. And one of the big challenges there is the insecurity about the offtake, because the whole the way we buy, or the way the industries are buying fuel is changing significantly. So how can industries actually be sending even stronger demand signals together, creating much more certainty at the supplier level that there will be offtake? And I want to put that under multi-sectoral offtake, not because it's the same product we're going to buy, but there's both going to be competition for the feedstock, but there's also a positive aspect of that. How can you actually send a much stronger signal together with the sectors? So yeah, collaboration is key.
Thank you so much. I want to thank my excellent panels, Kiki, Mette, Liana, Sotiris, Miltiadis, and Philippe. Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience for listening to us, and of course to Delphi Forum, Danai Bezantaku for bringing us together. Thank you all very much.